What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome back to another video. I'm Eli, and today we're doing a little bit of a different style video because I got to put the summer wheels on the SQ5, and I got to give you guys a little bit of an update on the SQ5. So without further ado, air suspension wheel changes on, and we're going up. So if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, I sold the rotiforms that I had on this car at the end of last season. Maybe I sold them in the middle of winter. I sold them at some point. I don't have them anymore, so I needed to find a replacement for these, and there's been a set of wheels that I've always had my eyes on. Did the old Facebook Marketplace search and came across, well, basically the perfect set. There's actually two sets on Facebook Marketplace right now. A set with tires for $800 and a set without tires for $1,000. Don't ask me how that makes sense. These are OEM RS5 rotors, by the way. I love these. I'll never sell these. I got these for a steal out of New Jersey. I bought these and I lowballed the guy and he accepted it. So I had the tires dismounted off of these. One of my buddies, I think, is going to buy it out of Georgia. We just got to figure out shipping. But here are the wheels. Do they look familiar? If not, these are Audi Q7 wheels, actually. These are off of the most current generation Q7. They're 21 by 9.5 with a 29 offset, maybe 31? 31. They have a 31 offset. So these are 1 millimeter less aggressive than the rotiforms I ran last year. I had Tires on Demand come through and dismount the stock tires, or the tires that my stock wheels came with. And I had to mount them on this because the Q7 comes with a 285/40 21. I would have loved to run a 285/35 21, but unfortunately that wasn't the tire size that I had. I'm trying to not spend much money on this car because we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm running a 255/40 Continental tire, not a Falcon. I wish I was running a Falcon, but these are what I had sitting around at the house. I'm gonna run 10 millimeter spacers in the rear. I think I should run 5s, but I don't have 5 millimeter ball seat bolts, or like when you run a spacer, you obviously need an extended bolt, and this one is a 40 millimeter bolt. To run a 5 millimeter spacer, you want a 35 millimeter bolt. Also unrelated, but one thing that's been driving me nuts recently is I have tools at the shop and at my house. I never seem to have the tools that I absolutely need in the place where I need them, so I'm about to buy doubles of everything. What's driving me nuts today is my torque wrenches at the shop. So if you guys didn't know, actually, if you have a Milwaukee Impact, Billy actually figured this out. If you go to setting 2 on the gun, and you give it a couple yaps, not like run it in, but give it a couple, it's almost always pretty much dead on around 100 foot-pounds, and we want 95 or 94 for these, so. And that will be good enough to drive to my shop, I hope. Either that or the wheel's falling off, one of the two. What do you think? It's less concave than an RS5 rotor, to be expected, but it's pretty flush. If you remember, about this time last year, I started talking about selling this car. So I went down to Florida last spring, saw my friend Sam Crack, and he had a higher mileage RS7 down there that he was going to sell me for an absolute steal. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start parting this car out. I think this was the end of June, beginning of July. And I started taking stuff off. I took the injectors, fuel pump. What else did I take off? I think just the injectors and the fuel pump and the map sensors. And then the market went away on the B9s. And when I went away, I got offered 38 grand on trade-in for this car at the beginning of July. By the end of July, when I was ready to do this deal with Sam, it was worth 30. So it's $8,000 down the toilet in the month of July. Obviously, it was never realized money, so I never really lost $8,000. But yeah, that from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, I lost $8,000 in value of car, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to sell it after all. The money didn't make sense. I had 38 in my mind, and to be told 30 after that, just not worth it. So obviously I kept it, kind of got put on the back burner, and I moved on to the B5 and doing a bunch of stuff to that. And obviously, as you guys know, I picked up the all-road in November, and the all-road has been, well, I took the motor out of it really since like December. I haven't had time for anything. So this car has really just been getting driven. It's on daily duty. I I actually just put the stock downpipe back in it to get emissions compliant. I've been told, again, by the woman who drives this car, that it's boring with the stock downpipe in it. So I think I'm going to put the aftermarket downpipe back in. It's really not that bad on these cars. It's a V-band and 6 bolts, and they all kind of live in the same area. And then, right as I was getting ready to switch, actually, you know what? When it was, the all-road was leaking oil, and I hadn't figured out that the drain plug was, like, around the drain plug was cracked, and the B5 already had the front end off of it. This car lit up the dash like a Christmas tree, and I mean every code that you could possibly throw. It said steering fault, sport diff, stability control, air ride faults, the airbag light was on. Literally every fault that you could think of was on the dash. So I took it to the dealer. It turns out the steering column went bad on this car, which is a $2,800 part, 2 hours of labor to install it. So the part was expensive. The part was in Germany. Luckily, Audi gave me a loaner for essentially 3.5 weeks while we waited for the part. I'm not super thrilled with the B9, and you know, I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to sell it last year. This car really just doesn't do it for me. And I know a lot of you guys have B9s. I know a lot of you guys have B9 SQ5s. I know a lot of you guys have B8s and B8.5s too. This particular car, the B9 SQ5, it's kind of boring. Let me talk to you more about that. Here's the wheels. What do you think? Do I need to move this so you can see? Oh, you know what? I need to do the air ride thing. Hang on. Maybe it'll level itself a little bit. Why is it sitting so high in the front? You know, I wish the tire was a little bit wider, but I think the silver wheels really complement the rest of the car. I like the wheel color. I like the wheel design. I wish I had a little more tire on it. All right, anyway, let's jump in the car. We'll talk a little bit more. So when I say this car is boring, I don't mean that it's slow. I don't mean that it's not good. It feels like they took a lot of the character out of the B9s that the B8.5s had. And I mean, I think I said that early on, but I couldn't really understand what it was that was missing until I bought the all-road. And I was like, wow, this feels way more like an Audi than my, this feels way more like an Audi in my mind than the B9 does. And the B5 to the B8, if you've driven both back to back, actually feel very similar. They're also built very similar. Like when I took the motor out of the B5, it's very similar to taking the motor out of the B8.5. This car is a completely different animal. Obviously, their whole goal was to revamp everything and, you know, do the interior over, make it nicer in here, and it is a nicer place to be. The buttons are nicer, the digital dash is nicer, the display is nicer. It just doesn't do it for me. I feel like those who get it will get it, and those who don't get it haven't driven both of them. I would drive a B8.5 SQ5 and a B9 SQ5 back to back. The B9 is a better place to be. The B8.5 is a better car to drive. So ultimately, I think I would like to get rid of this car and try something else in the Audi lineup, potentially something smaller, or potentially go back to the idea of the RS7. I actually was texting with Sam the other day. He still has that car. So it's still somewhat on the table. So I don't know. What do you guys want to see? You want to see me in an S3? And then eventually maybe an RS3? You want me to see an RS7 and then maybe into an RS3? I have no idea. Either way, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of the wheels as well. I'm pretty happy with how they look. A little chunky, and I wish the silver wasn't so silver, like it's a little shinier than all the trim. But when the car's a little bit dirty, I think it looks really nice, and it looks especially good rolling. So thank you for watching this video. It was a little bit different. It might have been a little bit boring, but I hope you guys listened to what I said. And I hope if you're going to buy a B9 SQ5, you drive a B8.5 first to make sure you don't like that better. Because you can retrofit CarPlay and even these seats into a B8.5, but you can't retrofit the B8.5 feeling into a B9. With that, that is all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go out there and spread some positivity, and I will catch you guys in the next video.